Today's presentation will be on new perspectives on trade and technology of the Indus civilization from 2600 to 1900 BC. Before beginning, I want to thank the organizers and the Vice Chancellor and all of the people who have supported this conference. Without their many months and years of effort, this would not have been possible. I also want to thank the Government of Pakistan Department of Archaeology and the many Director Generals, and I want to thank especially Dr. Mughal, who has been Director General while I was working in Harappa and helped with much of our research in Harappa. The work that we have done at Harappa and the work that's being done by many other scholars will form a part of my presentation, and I want to thank the people who have been collaborating and providing information so that I can present to you today. Many scholars say that we don't know much about Indus civilization, but I would say we know a lot about the Indus civilization, and major advances have been done in the last 20 years. Much more has been found out through detailed scientific studies and detailed analysis of materials. The Indus civilization is in the center of interaction networks between the East and the West. The development of these early civilizations was a part of a project that was happening at the same time in most regions. So you can see anything that's happening to the East, ideas flowing to the West or West coming to the East is going through the Indus civilization. And this conference is about Sindh. The Indus civilization is on the Sindhu Darya, and so everything along the Sindhu Darya is Sindh. And we need to think of it in an expansive sense of the Indus civilization. The development of the Indus civilization itself could not have happened without many other things around it. So Indus culture, Indus civilization is developing in a hinterland of areas which is Malwa, Gujarat, Deccan, Ganga Vindhya, Balochistan, Helmand, and Bactria Margiana. All of these areas, and we can add Oman, which is across the Gulf, and which I'll talk about a lot today. The trajectories that we see developing from the Indus set the foundation for the later integration of the two river systems that were talked about this morning. People are not bound by their environment. People can go beyond the rivers and connect beyond the rivers. And the Mauryan period, Magad, and the Mauryan period that happened after this showed the integration of the Ganga Jamuna region with the Indus region into what we call the Indo-Gangetic civilization. I won't talk about the whole trajectory today, but I want to make sure that we understand that there's a continuity, a long-term development that starts with the Indus and continues up until the present day. The foundations of Indus technology and trade can be traced to around 7000 BC at the important sites of Mehergarh and other sites that are being found in India, in Haryana, in Rajasthan, and Gujarat. So 7000 BC, we see people settling down, beginning to trade materials across great distances. And we see the foundations of technology, of animal husbandry, of domestication of plants and animals, and the technologies of pottery making, bead making, and other features that are necessary for the development of urbanism. New excavations in Haryana, Birhana, Girawar are showing that the same processes that we saw in Mehergarh are happening on the other side in Haryana and in the upper Ghaggar-Hakra River Valley. These discoveries in Pakistan and India have forced us to rethink the way we look at the past. The old diffusion models of people streaming into the subcontinent from outside need to be rejected. We know that the developments of these civilizations, the developments of these cultures are indigenous. They happen here, they are connected outside, but the developments that are going on here are part of this culture. And one of the important things that we see are items made of ornaments found in burials, such as in Mehergarh, and objects of shell, lapis lazuli, turquoise, which show the connections over great distances in the very early period. Mehergarh is one of the earliest places where we have the evidence for cotton. Cotton was being collected, possibly wild, but eventually domesticated, and the earliest evidence for cotton thread is found inside of a copper bead from Mehergarh. Sindh would not have the economic foundation it has today without cotton. So we have to thank the peoples of Balochistan and the borders of Sindh for finding cotton and developing it into such an important commodity. We also need to understand that people in Mehergarh were connected through long-distance trade networks to the coast. So Mehergarh is in Kutchi Plain. but they were connected to Makran and to Sindh along the coast near Karachi. They were also connected across the coast into the areas of Oman, which is the ancient Magan, the country on both sides of the Gulf of Oman. These are shell beads found from the site Jabal Hafit in the UAE, and they're identical to beads found in Mehergarh. And it suggests that people in Mehergarh were trading already at 7000 BC across the sea to Oman and bringing materials from that region. Other things found in the burials of Mehergarh are shell bangles. This is a shank. Shank is found in Buleji, just near Karachi here. It's found in Sonmiani. It's found on the other side in Ran Kutch. Shank is not found in Oman. So this is a shell only found in this part of the country. And the first shell bangles, kongon, worn by women are found in Mehergarh. This tradition is still practiced today and continues today in Bengal and other parts of India. So this is a map showing the early developments beginning at 7000 BC, showing the connections of Sindh and north into Baluchistan, across to Muscat and Oman, linking the regions of the southern Indus Valley and also up into the north, because we have evidence from this at Harappa, showing the linkages of these regions through trade networks. People were very industrious. They were able to link to new resources and link these regions through trade. The Indus tradition, the next phase we call regionalization. It's a period of time when we see different cultural traditions emerging, some in Baluchistan, some in Sindh, southern Indus Valley, some in northern Indus Valley. And the period extends from around 5000 BC to 2600 BC. At Harappa, which is where I've been excavating since 1986, we have evidence of figurines showing woven textiles. We have seals, we have sealings, we have weights, and we have evidence for an early writing system. This process of regional cultural development is something that we are seeing going on throughout the Indus civilization. The types of figurines found in Mehergarh during this time period show turbans. Now, turban is distinctive of different ethnic identities. Here is a Sindhi musician playing at the 2003 conference organized by Dr. Nilofar Sheikh in Khairpur, and then you see turbans worn by Pathan horsemen in Kabul and other areas. The Mehergarh people were also wearing these turbans. So textiles became an important form of identity. And different styles of tying textiles were clearly used as a form of communication. The studies that we've been doing at Harappa can be done at other sites. I'm giving Harappa as an example. But during the early phase, the Hakra Ravi phase, we see links to the Gagar Hakra region. We see links to Sindh, Sakhar Rodi, and we see many of the materials coming from the north, from Besham, from Hazara, from Momand, from Bajor. All of these areas were providing raw materials to the northern Indus Valley. The same patterns can be found in Mohenjo-daro. They were getting from the Kirtar, from Rajasthan, and from Kutch. These trade networks expand during the later phase, the Kotdijian phase, which Dr. Mughal has defined through his excavations in Kotdiji or his studies of Kotdiji material. Kotdiji was a period of time when we see the pre-urban development of Indus civilization. This links all of the regions in the north and the south together through trade networks. And it's trade that really brings the Indus civilization together along the rivers and then along their tributaries. There's also one other factor. And the speaker this morning was talking about the priests of Mohenjo-daro and how they controlled. I would underline this. Ideology, a religious belief system, was key to integration, something that was shared. Now, you can interpret that in different ways, but we see bull and water buffalo horn figures found in Kotdiji, in Remanderi, in the Bannu region. We have them in Banawali, in Haryana, and Kalibangan. These bull horn motifs show the beginning of a shared ideology across the entire greatest Indus Valley. And this shared ideology combined with trade networks allowed people to link together and communicate and become more integrated. They also began developing a hierarchy, a group of people in charge who had power, and they were using their power through economics and ideology to control trade. They were making seals. And the seals that they used were stamped into commodities and in storerooms and bundles of goods being shipped. This is a sealing from Harappa. probably used to close a storeroom. We have standardized weights, which were used for evaluating wealth. This weight is 1.3 grams. What can you weigh with a weight of 1.3 grams? Gold dust, silver, or attar, right? Or spices, high value, small weight commodities. So they were using things of high value in their trade and using these weights as a form of calculating. One of the earliest seals from Harappa has an elephant. The elephant is a symbol of royalty and power and has continued to be that symbol even till today. The writing system I don't have time to talk about, but we have clear evidence for the development of a writing system of the Indus, starting with the Hakra Ravi phase through the Kotdiji and into the Harappan. So it shows that writing was closely linked to the development of power and authority, and then also control of trade. The integration era is when the cities that were developing in Sindh, in Punjab, in Gujarat, in Haryana became integrated through trade networks. And as was mentioned this morning, there's no evidence of palaces or kings or rulers. This was done mushtarka. It was a corporate rule. People who were powerful, had wealth, were negotiating power and eventually linking together through their trade networks. But the cities that we see developing are massive. And Professor Janssen will be talking about these cities later, so I'm not going to talk about the detail, but this is a very important component of Indus culture, is their cities. And you see that they're linked across the Gulf to Oman as well, which I'll talk about. The cities, the largest ones, are up to 250 to 300 hectares, Mohenjo-daro. Harappa is a bit smaller, 150 hectares, all the way down to the small bastis and villages along the river. Through our excavations at Harappa, we can see that the cities of the Indus Plain and the tributaries are organized in walled settlements. They are not in one single wall around them. Harappa had numerous neighborhoods, and these walls were never destroyed by warfare. They were used probably for economic control. Gateways and walls maintained for 700 years, but no evidence that they were destroyed through battle. So we have no evidence of a military, but we do have evidence of strong control and strong economic control through gateways. Outside the gateways are the sarai, and each city gateway or every area has a sarai outside, so you can see the sarai here at Harappa, and then also the next one. One site that is different, which will be talked about later today, is Dholavira. And Dholavira is located on an island in Rann Kutch, which control the trade networks along the coast. Dholavira is organized very differently. It has similar to smaller settlements in Kutch, which are square fortified settlements. These are small sites, Goladoro, Shikarpur, excavated by MS University, Baroda, and Dholavira, which starts out probably as a small walled settlement, gets bigger and bigger and bigger with sequences of walls built out. So it's controlled in a very different way than Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. Most recent discoveries that should be excavated, and I would plead to all of the people who have power in Sindh to please protect Lakhanjo-daro. Lakhanjo-daro is 300 hectares in large. It's a big city, as big as Mohenjo-daro. It's only located 78 kilometers from Mohenjo-daro, but it's covered by the modern city of Sakkar. And Shah Abdul Latif University has been trying to excavate and trying to protect this site, but they've been not very successful. So we need to do something about this city because it's very, very important. Recent work in India at Rakhigadi, which is an important settlement, 200 hectares by Deccan College Pune and the Archaeological Survey of India, are showing that this is a site also which is a very important urban center. 2 villages are living on top of the ancient site. So they're getting the villagers to help. They're getting the local people to understand their own heritage to help preserve this settlement. So the cities themselves are very important, which will be talked about in more detail because of their organization, their sanitation, their wells, their latrines. They also had very monumental architecture, and one of the important discoveries from recent work in Lakhanjo-daro and Harappa are the use of ring stones, which we can associate with big columns. Some of these may have been for large buildings of very powerful individuals, which you could call a palace, but they weren't centralized. There were many of them. And so this is something that we need to examine and study more closely. At Mohenjo-Daro, they also have ringstones, which were thought to be quite enigmatic in the past, and they may have belonged to one of these large buildings. In Dholavira, we have clear evidence of the ringstones being used on verandas of the upper part of the city, where you have powerful rulers and individuals who are controlling. So stone architecture was an important part of Indus technology. The rulers themselves were using seals as a symbol of their authority, stamped into goods. And they used many different motifs. The elephant is the earliest one, but also they invented a mythical animal, the unicorn. Now the unicorn animal motif is found on 65% of the seals, which means that this is the most common use of seal in the Indus cities. The community that must be represented by unicorn was probably the merchant community, the people who were controlling the everyday activities of economics. And what's very interesting is that at the end of the Indus civilization, the unicorn symbol disappears from the art of South Asia. Whoever this community was, they were so powerful and so ruthless in their control that when they lost power, nobody wanted to remember them. Can you imagine this? So we think of unicorn as a very important symbol of Indus civilization, but actually these were people who were clearly involved in zulm. They were controlling in a way that nobody wanted to remember. So there is no unicorns in Sarnath, there are no unicorns in other cities of India, but there are bulls, there are elephants, there are mahisha, there are every other animal. So this is something to remember. The short-horned bull is another example, which is found on seals that are found from Indus cities, also in Oman and in Bahrain and in Mesopotamia. This type of seal may have represented the trading community that was involved in coastal trade. So this is an important discovery recently. I won't talk about the writing system so much. Some other scholars will talk about it, but we don't really have any way to translate the Indus writing until we have a bilingual text. And the Indus writing, I think, was versatile. It could be used for writing multiple languages. It was not used for a single language, because the Indus covered an area much greater than one single language can encompass. So it was used for economic purposes, for ritual purposes, for trade, and it was used in many different ways. Here is a sealing from Kalibangan that shows 4 seals stamped into the same piece of clay. 4 seals with different writing. This is 4 different owners of a bundle of goods, or 4 bureaucrats who have to check the taxes have been paid, the inspection of the goods has been done, something to control. So bureaucracy is there. We have large seals. This one is 5.5 centimeters square, very big. It was never stamped into goods. It was probably used as a medallion or some kind of symbol of power. So small seals were used for economic, but these large ones may have been for display. And we have circular seals in the Gulf, which have writing of Indus script, but the sequence of signs is different, which means that this writing is used to write a different language. It's used to write a language of Gulf people living in Bahrain and in the Gulf region. So it shows the Indus writing was very versatile and able to deal with multiple language systems. Most recently, there have been discoveries of written objects in Mesopotamia, which suggest that some of the writing was translated into other languages, but we don't have the bilingual text. We have Indus seals shape carved with a Akkadian script. And the writing on this says Kalusim or Kakushi or Kakulim, which is the name of a person. And the translation could be Kaku is favorable. So this means Shub Lab. Stamp your goods with a good luck symbol and then you have lots of profit. We have similar seals from other sites in Mesopotamia which say the servant or dog of Ninildum, or the servant or dog of the son of the servant. So Ur means dog or servant. So this is not even the name of a person, but I am the son of the son, or the son of the person who is the servant of the deity. And this deity is associated with wood, a tarkhan, a carpenter deity, which may reflect the important trade networks bringing shisham wood or sisu wood from Indus Valley to Mesopotamia. So that we know some of the exports that were being traded. Trade was controlled, highly standardized, with standardized weight system throughout the Indus region. This has been discussed by many scholars, but it's important to note that the same weight system was used in the Indus region as well as in Oman and Bahrain. So traders were taking their weights to these other areas for controlling the materials. The counting system was based on probably 1, 2, 4. Some of you have seen the traditional way of counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So this is the same system that was used in the Harappan times. And we can see multiples of 4 in all of their numerological seals that we have examples of. Pottery is what tells us that people were Indus. If we find pottery with certain designs, we can call this Indus site. And the site type of painting designs are found throughout the Indus region, as far as Badakhshan. We find examples of it now in Oman. And it's through the pottery that we can see identity. And one of the important types of vessels is a storage vessel, which we see down here on the right, and then also a cooking pot, which we see in the middle. Now, when I talk about Harappan technology, one of the most basic things of human life is food. And if you need to have some food, you have to have a pot to cook it in, which I look at technologically as a type of vessel which you can cook on a small chula. The fire goes away from the rim, so when you can grab it by the rim and not burn your fingers. The Harappans developed another technological invention of making an additional ridge so that any fire that comes over the edge will bounce away from the rim. So this is a very important technological feature that is still used by handis today. And it's very distinctive for South Asia. We don't have handis in Mesopotamia. We don't have them in Egypt. We don't have them in China. We don't have them in America, okay? When you find a handi, you know this is cooking done by a South Asian, somebody from Indus region or South Asia in general. We also have large storage vessels which were used for trade, and that movement of these vessels was part of the technological shape of them. You seal the top, you lay them on their side, and you can roll them. So they can be moved onto boats, onto ox carts, and shipped very easily. When you need to use them, you dig a hole in the ground and tip them over. You never have to lift them off the ground. So this is also a technological invention. And it was used in trade throughout the Indus region, Baluchistan, Afghanistan, and also to Oman. So these trade networks are highly varied. Some of them are long distance, some of them are local, but they link these regions together. And what's very interesting, I've just come from Muscat, where I've been looking at material found in Oman. And I went there to study the types of materials from the Indus Valley that are found in Oman to see if there's some local production or if there's some more details that I can learn. So Dr. Maurizio Tosi and Serge Clouzot had found in the 1970s evidence of Harappan trading vessels on the coast at a site called Ras al-Jins. So large black slip storage jars, ivory combs, etc. We've known, and painted pottery is also being found there. So we know that the Harappans were coming to Oman for trade. More recently, we found cooking pots. This is found just last 2 years. Cooking pots found in the interior of Oman. Who would go to the interior of Oman with a cooking pot? Not an Omani. It has to be somebody from the Indus Valley, taking with them their cooking pot so that they can cook their food the way they want it cooked. So finding cooking pots in interior sites of Oman means that Indus Valley people were living and staying in the interior. What's even more interesting is that some of the cooking pots are made with local clay. No Omani potter could replicate a cooking pot identically to Indus potters. So it means that potters were also going. So when you have people who are cooking and potters who are making their pottery, and we also have evidence of a seal carved with Indus style, it means that entire communities of Indus people were probably living in Oman. These are the probashis, the people who are going out, living in other countries and trading back. And they're going also to Mesopotamia, so I think we will find the similar material in Mesopotamia. We have evidence from Sindh and from Ran Kutch of trade all the way to Bahrain. These circular disc seals are found in Bahrain and in Failaka, in Kuwait, and in Mesopotamia. Some of the pottery found in these sites is also similar between Kutch and Saurashtra and Sindh and these other regions. I'm just showing these as ideas that are coming now. We're just in the process of studying them. And we know that the people of these regions were connecting to Mesopotamia on one side and to the east on the other. And some of the burial tombs, which we see on Bahrain, are identical to the burial structures found on Dholavira. So the question is, were the Dholavira people coming to Bahrain or Bahrain people coming to Dholavira? And I don't believe in drawing arrows in only one direction. We have to have arrows going back and forth because people are coming and going, and this means that there is interaction between these regions during the Harappan period. We know that there was interaction between Central Asia and Mohenjo-daro. This is a seal from that area. We know that people were trading to get commodities, special types of ornaments. And the shell bangle continues to be a very important ornament of the Indus. We have gold ornaments, we have high value commodities that were being worn by their elites. We also see beads made of carnelian, beads made of aqiq found only in Gujarat, in Saurashtra. These were being brought to Sindh and then also traded. We also have a feature of Indus technology that is unique to South Asia is miniaturization. Anybody can make a very big bead, but it takes a lot of craftsmanship to make a small bead. And then you can wear 1,000 small beads and make it look like textile. So technologically, miniaturizing things was something that the Indus people developed. But to make a small bead, you have to have a piece of thread that is strong enough to hold it while you're making it. And when we first discovered these beads at Harappa, I thought there has to be some evidence for a very strong fiber. I tried to make cotton fiber, it breaks. I tried to make wool fiber, it breaks. Silk is the only thing strong enough to hold the tiny beads when you are making them with these micro beads. We have evidence of trade beyond the Indus to Central Asia, Mesopotamia, and possibly even China. I don't have time to talk about that now, but this is stuff put up on our harappa.com website. And we see evidence of people wearing Harappan-style ornaments in Mesopotamia, and even Harappan-style headdresses. So there's clearly a link of people, not only male traders, but women traders going out. Ornament styles, which are clear from the sculptures, and textiles, which we see depicted on the famous sculptures. And textiles themselves, the study of textiles is something that has been sadly neglected. But we're doing some new work on textiles which shows the extensive use of cotton in the Harappan period and the use of a charki. The first evidence for charki is from the Harappan period. They did not use spindle whorls anymore in the big cities. They used the charki to make long and fast thread, which was uniform style. We also have regular wool, but also some very fine wool. And fine wool, people here know pashmina, shatush, which means that they were getting material from the highlands to the north. We also have evidence of jute fiber. So textiles were an important part of their economic development, and these were traded out from the Indus region. Most important new discovery is the discovery of silk at Harappa. Now, in excavations in 2001, we found fragments which we've taken some time to study, but this evidence shows now woven silk from Harappa. This woven silk was used to wrap a piece of broken bronze that was going to be sold to the kabar. If you have silk enough to use to wrap up your kachra, it means that silk was common in your society. And this piece of kachra was being wrapped in silk and then put on a shelf and eventually got buried. So the discovery of silk in Harappa was also found from necklaces and bangles as tassels, which means that silk was found in many different commodities. We know that this is tassar, muga, and eri, 3 types of wild silk. What does this tell us about the Indus? It means that they were developing multiple types of textiles, including silk for possibly fine beads and then elegant textiles. It also changes our whole idea about the Silk Road. One of the later speakers will talk about the Silk Road. The Silk Road actually begins in the Indus Valley for this region. China had its own silk, and the two meet in Central Asia. But the silk from Indus region is very important and needs to be studied. And we know this from the early texts. So the Astadhyayi of Panini talks about patta and pattu, and also kauseya. These are words for silk in Sanskrit. When Chinese silk comes in, they call it chinamsuka. It's Chinese silk. So the idea is known that the Chinese silk is different. And I don't have time to explain this more, but it's clearly going to change our ideas about ancient trade networks. The burials show evidence for the use of ornaments that were clearly distinctive of different statuses and ethnic identity. And one of the features of some of the Harappa burials is that the bangles of the women in the early burials are wider, and the ones in the later burials are very thin. A woman with very thin bangles does not chop wood. She tells servants what to make for dinner. She doesn't even gund atta, you know? She tells them what to make, right? Because the tiny bangles will break. So this shows that the women of Harappa were also becoming very powerful and elite. The men also occasionally wore ornaments from distant areas. We can trace them all the way to Dholavira in Kutch. And the burials at Harappa show that there is clearly hierarchy of groups within the Indus civilization. It was not a society of equals, but some people had more power than others, and these were linked through long-distance trade networks and also marriage networks. And reaffirming the speakers this morning about the absence of warfare. We have no depictions of people killing people, of battles, of kings, of rulers, and the weapons of the Indus Valley were not used for offensive activities. So they clearly were controlling through ideology and also through economics. This was probably their downfall, because if something goes wrong in a society and you don't have a military to back you up, then it falls apart. And I won't talk about the late Harappan. Dr. Mughal will be talking about that, so we can discuss that in the question and answer period. Religion is also important, and many of these images you have seen many times, but religion combined with writing is clearly a way of controlling and giving power to the elites. And the religious motifs of the Indus were borrowed by people in Mesopotamia. So we see Mesopotamian seals depicting a man sacrificing a water buffalo. So Mesopotamians did not have water buffaloes. They came from Sindh to Mesopotamia, and then they became incorporated into Mesopotamian ideology. So many of the things from Indus influenced the regions of the areas to the west. And then we also have the legacy, the idea of yoga, the idea of meditation. These are things which became adopted and borrowed and used by later communities in Jain and Buddhist communities and Hindu communities of later South Asia. One of the favorite things that I like to end my lecture on is who was controlling and who were the powerful people. The people of the Indus who had very strong power were often depicted probably as composite features. So we have a female with a tiger body, a male tiger with a male face. So tigers and humans became combined. These were the sher, okay, the people who were powerful. And we also have the bull motif combined. So bull, tiger, man or woman became an important symbol of a protector or a powerful person. And it's something that we see incorporated into later iconography and also even the way people wear their beards. So the Tukaramji is wearing a beard shaped like a tiger. Okay, so this is the tiger's ruff. Not like a lion, but like a tiger. This image and this motif continues on in temples, on tribal jewelry. Even the door knockers from Al-Mansura have this same feature on it. So it connects from the past through the historical period, through many different cultures and religious traditions, even up to the present. So I would just end by saying that South Asia, the Indus Valley, Sindh, began as an important interaction network area, and it continues even today as a key network linking the East and West. And it's a crossroads of cultures, and I want to thank the organizers for letting me present this small presentation. Thank you.